Well, hello everybody, I'm John Cogley. I'm the owner of Daniel Smith, and I'm here in England at Ken Bromley. And thank you so much, Ken Bromley, for having Daniel Smith product, and thank you for all you as viewers and artists for using Daniel Smith product. We wouldn't be here without you. So today I'm going to go over quite a bit of material, and I hope it helps you out. How we make paint starts with, for us, the best pigment. So we source pigment worldwide, both synthetic and natural. And the natural, I have a mineralogist that I send all over the world to get the minerals that I'll show you how I make those into pigment. Different process of using these machines. But if we look on this page, the most important thing on this whole page is not Daniel Smith. It's not the mineralogist, Bruce, although I really love Bruce. It's right here, it's the artist. Because for us, everything starts with the artist. If there's no artist, then we don't have a company. It's all about, is the color and are the colors that we make going to help this person, the artist, convey what they want to convey to the world. So it starts and ends right here with the artist. The majority of all the pigment that we use come from two places. They can come from the earth, or they can come from the laboratory. So they can be natural, they can be synthetic, they can be inorganic or organic. Those are usually the four classifications for pigment. If we're getting them from the earth, similar to this right here, which is lapis. This is Chilean lapis. It was the first pigment we used for our watercolor. Or it can be from the laboratory. The laboratory, that's where you go to make perfect colors. So pyrroles, paralenes, quinacridones, all of your cars are synthetic. They have great light fastness, they last a long time, they can take a lot of environmental issues without losing color or deterioration, and they don't granulate. This next page goes over how we use minerals to make the pigment for the Primitex. So the neat thing about the Primitex, this one for example is perprite, and their minerals are imperfect. There's other things in association with them. They're not as pure as a synthetic. The neat thing about that is you get granulation. But this is the beautiful part of the Primitex, is that they granulate. And it's natural granulation. There's no chemical here. It's because of differential specific gravity in the mineral itself. There's things in the mineral that weigh different, etc. So when they move, they don't move together, and that causes granulation. So Bruce goes all over the world to meet with mineralogists. And what they're after is they're after getting very nice mineral specimens in pockets. And they will take months to painstakingly get brushes and little tiny files to move material to get that mineral specimen. And many times they break. And when they break or they have no value, then we buy them because we can make pigment from it. So I'm asked, are these materials renewable and sustainable? Yes, they are. It's a matter of geology, and geology is just two things. Geology is pressure and time. There's always going to be pressure, there's always going to be time. So there will always be minerals. The thing that limits minerals is, for the most part, housing and buildings that are put on top of the land that stop the land, or when water comes into a mine and floods it. This is rhodonite, and rhodonite is found in mineral burdens, and it's where they were going after, for example, gold or some precious metal, and these were just thrown to the side. And then 100 years later, people have gone through those dirt piles finding the rhodonite that had no value then, but has value now. So it is very, very, very sustainable. So one of the first machines we use in our quest to make pigment for the Primitex, which means primitive technology, is using a jaw mill. And a jaw mill is just a large piece of equipment that has two plates, and they come together and they squeeze. They don't crush, they just squeeze. And it doesn't take that much pressure for a mineral to break apart, especially when it's a crystal, because crystals have lattices and they're very weak on their lattices. So what this machine does, it's going to cleave the material. And we'll start about the size of a basketball or a soccer ball, so maybe this big. And it's just gonna squeeze and they're gonna fall apart into pieces like this, or maybe like this, much smaller pieces. But I wanted to make sure I was clear about cleaving versus smashing. In many of the sessions that I do all over the world, there'll always be engineers. And they'll say, John, you know, instead of taking, you said 3 months, you can actually take this lapis and use a pneumatic press and you could be done in hours. And they're right, I could do that. And there's an issue with it. And here's the issue. If I took table sugar and I went outside into the sunlight and I moved it around in a glass jar, it would be alive. And that's because it's a crystal. That small granulated sugar is a crystal, and crystals they just dance with light. If I came back in and I took a cup of powdered sugar, confection sugar, which is the same thing, it's the same sugar, and I take that out, it's deader than a doornail. It's white, there's no life to it, it's dead. So because color is so important, I can't destroy the crystal. If I destroy the crystal, I destroy the color. And that's why it takes so long to process the lapis, because it's just a continual process of cleaving and cleaving and cleaving and cleaving and cleaving until it gets to 40 microns. Once we get that smaller piece, we're gonna put it to what's called a hammer mill. And a hammer mill just hits and hits and hits and hits and hits. And we go from this size right here to about the size of a grain of rice. And then once we get it to the size of a grain of rice, we'll put it to the last machine, which is a ball mill. And a ball mill just has balls and they tumble, almost like your clothes in a dryer. They tumble and tumble and tumble and tumble. And what we're looking at is getting 40 microns or less. And to give you an idea of that, the thickness of this piece of paper is 100 microns. This can take up to 2 or 3 months with a crystal, because we don't want to destroy the crystal. So it's a very time-intensive method to get down to the particle that we want. Okay, so here we have lapis, and this is lapis at 80% pure. And these two right here are the synthetic forms of lapis, ultramarine and French ultramarine. Chemically, you cannot tell the difference between these. Chemically, they're exactly the same. For us, this one we're gonna process from the mineral. These two come from the laboratory. This one is about $2,000 a kilo. These are $9 a kilo, significantly less. People ask me, well, can you get lapis this blue? I've seen it this blue. You have seen it most likely very, very blue, especially if you went to see some of the masters' work. And that was to show you that the people that were having that done, the church, the state, or very, very rich patrons, they were rich because lapis was the same price as gold. To get lapis from this to this blue, this would be roughly $40,000 a kilo. So not impossible, but most likely you would never buy a tube of it. It'd be very, very, very expensive. And realistically, why would you do that when ultramarine and the French ultramarine are so beautiful? If it were inside of oil or acrylic, which would change the refraction index of light hitting it, this would actually be darker in an oil or an acrylic. But as a watercolorist, you're seeing the pigment just laying up on top of the paper being held by gum arabic. So let's talk about these two for a moment. I'm often asked, so what's the difference between French ultramarine and ultramarine? With the French ultramarine, these are both PB29, pigment blue number 29. They are exactly the same. Not close, they are exactly the same. The difference is the particle size. French ultramarine is larger, and when light comes down and hits it, it moves toward the red or the warm. Ultramarine is smaller, and when light hits it, it moves toward the cool or the green. So if you never knew why you picked that, most likely subconsciously you're seeing that the French is warm and the ultramarine is cool. I get asked many times, what is your favorite color, John? And while we have 266 colors, and I think they all have beauty about them, I really love the ultramarine blue. It may be very simple, but for me, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous color, and I love it. All right, so once we are done processing the mineral, and we have the particle size we want, which is 40 microns or less, there's a lot of other steps for continuity and purity standpoints, a lot of chemical systems it has to go through to assure that. We're gonna go to the next step, which is how we use both the synthetics and the naturals to make paint. Now that we have the pigment, either the synthetic or we have the natural, doesn't matter, either one, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make paint. And making paint is like making a cake. So we start by getting a vessel. And for us, a vessel is anything that we can put distilled water, the pigment, and gum arabic into. So we're gonna put those in and we're gonna mix those. We're gonna mix those with a mixer. The ones we have at the company are 18 feet. And the blade might be 3 inches at my home. These are 24 inches. So it's a mixer, but it's a mixer on steroids. When we put the pigment and the gum arabic and the distilled water into the vessel, the process chemist, we have an RD chemist and we have process chemist. The process chemist has to come out. They have to verify what the batch maker used for pigment, etc., and then they'll sign off on it. Once they sign off on it, it's going to go to the mixing. After it mixes and what we call wetting it out, they'll sign off on that piece. Once they sign off on that piece, we're going to what's called a dispersion mill. But before we go there, let's talk about this step right here. Particles, because they're so small, they have an inherent electrostatic charge. They want to be with each other, and that charge makes them want to stick. If we don't break that to get gum arabic around to put it in a linear format, such as this, then what happens is we get an agglomerate and we get refraction of light versus reflection of light. And with refraction is when you put it over, you get scattering of light. And this process right here is scattering of light. It's very hard to see it over a white. But when you have reflection of light, which is like an iridescent, you can see it over white, i.e. you're getting hot spots and cold spots. So we're going to use our machine to get rid of these hot spots and cold spots. To do that, we use what's called a dispersion mill. And a dispersion mill, as you see here, it takes the agglomerate, and the rolls are 4 feet to 6 feet long, and they go in opposite directions. So that opposite direction tears that agglomerate apart. Tears it apart, allows gum arabic to go around the particles, which allows it to be more linear and have a common index of refraction. So very little, if any, hot spots or cold spots. We want to take those all out of the equation. The other thing that it does, it takes air out. That's why it's called a de-aeration mill as well. It takes air out as it goes through that squeezing process. You don't want to pay for air. I don't want to sell you air. So it does both of those things simultaneously. And at the very, very least, we have to put the batch through this at least 2 times, sometimes 7 or 8 times. The floor chemist has to look. They're going to go in the laboratory. They're going to do a drawdown. These are 1 to 10, 1 part paint to 10 parts water. They're going to do a drawdown. They're going to measure it. If it doesn't meet continuity with a prior color, then they're going to add or modify what has to be done to it. It has to then go all the way back to the mixing station where water is added to it or whatever, and it goes through this whole process again. So a paint can take hours or it can take days, and it's all dependent on the particle. If you have to put it in the machine, even though these dispersion mills are cooled with water, you still have evaporation, which can cause one batch to be different than the prior batch. And so we will go through this process until they match. Every one of those costs money because time is money when you're a manufacturer. The Primitex actually end up eating these mills because the hardness on some of these are 8s or 9s. Steel is about a 6.5. And when these rolls wear down, it's roughly $40,000 to $50,000 to change them out. And I have 6 machines, so they're really expensive to change. I change them every 2 years. Probably the most important aspect for a professional artist. For some of you it may not matter, but if you want longevity, if you want to be a professional artist, it's going to be about light fastness. And light fastness is tested with a xenon phaedometer. And that's what this machine is right here. We own one of these. There's a xenon bulb in the middle. In about 16 days, we can test out to 100 plus years of light. So we will test our samples through this machine. We do that by using a photospectrophotometer. We will take an area on one of our drawdowns, and we will present that to the xenon phaedometer and get a reading. We'll put that into the xenon phaedometer. We will give it the 16 days. We'll take it back then to the photospectrophotometer again. We'll measure the same area. So we had it before. Now we're going to have an after, and then the computer will give us a reading of light fastness, etc. So we can do all that in-house. I was also asked, well, that's such an important thing. How do you know that always works? The manufacturer will have the information on their sheets because they would have done it. We will also do it. So it's one check, we're the second check. And then when we're done, we're going to send it out of house to ASTM. We'll do the third check. This right here is a discussion of I think one of the most important things for many of you, and it's reticulation. This right here. So this could be called granulation, reticulation, or flocculation, all the same thing, meaning this right here. And it's caused mainly by differential specific gravity. Things weigh different. The particles don't want to dance with each other, so they move away from each other. But let's look at moonglow. So moonglow is the example here showing granulation. And moonglow is a very pretty color. You see the granulation, and it has this red tint to it. It's quite beautiful. And it is made with anthracenoid red, viridian, and ultramarine blue. So these three pigments are used to make this color. If we look here, we can see anthracenoid red is very light, so it kind of floats on the top. Ultramarine is a little bit heavier, so it kind of goes to the middle. And viridian is heavier than these two. And because we have that differential specific gravity, that's why we get this granulation. So the interesting thing is, one day this batch was being made, and the batch maker, instead of using anthracenoid red, used pyro orange. And the chemist caught that, because when they tested it, they said this is not the same. And that's how we came up with shadow violet. So shadow violet are these three: pyro orange, ultramarine blue, and viridian. And it has this beautiful orange, granulating orange to it versus this red tint. So shadow violet, moonglow. This is kind of just to give you a comparison of size. This is a salt crystal. That's about the size of a piece of salt crystal compared to a cross section of a human hair. So 100 microns versus 70 microns. To what we want to have, this or less, which is 40 microns. You can see how the relationship of size. 8 microns is about the size of French ultramarine blue, and 2 microns, size of bacteria, is about the size of the ultramarine blue. So the last thing we're going to look at, and I've been asked this question quite a bit too, it's going to be quinacridones. So quinacridones are 5-ring molecules. So these are very beautiful. If you've not used these are really beautiful for mixing. Their transparency is phenomenal. They're used quite a bit in flowers, although they can be used in anything. They're beautiful, beautiful colors. Quinacridone means 5. Quin means 5, so it's a 5-ring molecule. You can see that this one is pigment violet number 19. So pigment violet is PV19. And I'm asked, John, if I know they're using PV19, can I go and find that pigment and would I be looking at the same color that they're looking at? And the answer is no. And it's no for many different reasons. It's no because different pigment manufacturers have different processing, but there's also different shades. A shade is a different particle. So let's look at that for a second. So this is PV19 quinacridone violet. This is PV19 quinacridone red, and this is PV19 quinacridone rose. And you can see that they're nothing like each other, and they're all PV19. So just knowing that isn't going to tell you the particular shade that your friend may be looking at or that you might have read about. So this is because of chemistry. And the other example I just wanted to go back to one more time was because of size, which is the French ultramarine and the ultramarine. So this is chemistry, and this is physical size of the particle. In the end, you as watercolorists, it's all about the particle. The particle is everything because it's how light is being affected. And as artists, you're artists of light. You're pushing light around to get different colors and different vibrancies.